Hello, everybody. Mecca from Misfit Artist, as per the usual. And today we're doing a little fan art slash style mashup. Oh, I forgot I had Oreos. Of Lethal Company, the newest fun, uh, uh, sussy wussy game. I haven't been able to watch I've been able to watch some of it from Markiplier. I haven't played any of it yet, but it has monsters, and you know me, I do love me some monsters. So please go ahead and comment your favorite monsters from the game down below if you want me to draw more of them or what styles you think. Here, I went ahead and tried a Gravity Falls art style because relatively simple. We're still kind of recovering from the holidays, need something easy peasy. But also, I thought it'd be fun to, because the game is a really fun, simple, low poly art style. So I thought translating that to a very similarly simplistic art style could be fun. Next one, if I do another one of these, maybe I'll do more like an anime or like a fantasy dramatic rendering. But you know me, I'm an animator. I'm always going to look at how things could be animated. We went ahead and did the Thumper because it's a fun silhouette. Like obviously that face is just crazy insane. Which did make me kind of want to do a more realistic version of this because all that goop would have been a lot of fun. But honestly, making him almost adorable was a fun little mission. But yeah, I referenced the Summerween Trickster and a few of the other Gravity Falls monsters. Obviously, a lot to look at. And I tried to really copy the shapes. I looked at the zombies for the kind of ribcage torso design. And yeah, one of the things that's always really essential when you're trying to copy an art style is how faces and eyes are drawn, because we look at that first. We're always going to look at that. So, as you saw, I tried to do smaller eyes on kind of on the side, because that's what it looked like the Thumper actually had. But very few creatures or characters in the Gravity Falls universe have small eyes. Almost everything has that universal big round eye. And of course, a big derpy mouth. This is always a lot of fun. I want to keep the background relatively simple. So just the idea that he's kind of like chasing someone on this platform, maybe tore off part of the railing, or maybe the guy he was chasing fell down. And yeah, as for the brush, because Gravity Falls is an animated show, a lot of animation will have very consistent and standard size brushing with very low pressure sensitivity. And even the details, most of them are just that same thick brush. For readability, I think is the point of that. So I used that, and most of the shapes were kept really simple and readable. Big round eyes, rounded triangle teeth. Very few things in Gravity Falls are really sharp. Goes to that Disney aesthetic, I guess. And I didn't really color him too much, as you'll see. Again, the low poly art style lends to these very monochrome designs for the most part. And I just did. Again, trying to keep it fast. Maybe I'll go back and do a slightly more dramatic rendering of him. Because, I mean, the line art's done. It wouldn't be hard to throw a couple shading layers on there. But one of the other challenges when you're doing something like this, because I said it's low poly, so trying to illustrate it, you can start to make some decisions, and maybe people who play it or watch one of the videos will know more about it. But I couldn't tell if he had hooves or hands. I like the idea of him having hands as he scuttled around with his two arms. And I gave him... I went with the 3 fingers because that's just very inhuman, lends to the monster kind of vibe. What went under the chest area was really the hardest part, because it looked like in the game there was like these tendrils, and that just... it didn't read as very much in this art style. I think it works in the 3D art style, but for this, it didn't do a whole lot. So I think that was one thing I kind of simplified down. But I mean, otherwise, I feel like the biggest parts that I learned, this is a fun exercise to do. Whether it's doing it in your own art style or in a art style you appreciate, start mashing things up. This can be really worthwhile in your portfolio because it will show your ability to work for someone else and either come up with an original design or to adapt things. You know, if you're working for DC, for instance, that they kind of change their standard art style every chunk of years, and you have to know how to draw Batman in Brave and the Bold style or Teen Titans Go style, this, that, the other thing. So to show that you can understand what makes a character and how that's represented in someone else's style is a very useful skill to have. At least I think so. So like I said, go ahead and design your own characters in a show style, or do something like this, smash them up. Figure out, and you can do objectives like, oh, this character's really scary. How can I make them adorable? I'm sure that will get you a lot of likes on Instagram. I mean, cute demogorgons were everywhere for a while. So, yep, take some time. Make sure there's no dumb, messy lines lying around. I also tried to add in some things, because most of the characters in Gravity Falls are very simple and clean and flat. But if you look at the zombies, they have some of those wrinkles going on, that little bit of texturing. So I wanted to do that, give him some dry lips and whatnot. Give him a really small tongue, because I don't think in a lot of the reference I saw there was much tongue action for the Bracken. So I'm like, well, he probably has something. Let's give him like a little snake tongue and kind of mash up some characteristics. It took some time trying to figure out, because like I said, I looked at the zombie faces a lot, and they clearly have like that sunken in eye thing, and there's two ways to kind of get that, is either another circle around the eyes or those lines coming off like the corner of the eye. And I think I just remember having a kind of a hard time deciding which way I wanted to go. It looks like I may have also grabbed a sandwich or something while drawing, because that was a bit of a long pause. I tried to go in and do some shading first, which is just, you can do it late. You can do shading after flats or before flats. But if you're an animator and you're going to shade, when I animate, a lot of times I don't know if I'm going to decide to shade a piece or not till later. So I'll leave it towards the end. But the smart thing would be to shade first, because that way you can use your onion skin to look back at it and track it. And for this, it's also worthwhile shading first sometimes in an illustration, just to keep that feeling of depth and know what you want to sink into the background and such. It's a good way to keep your design going strong. At first I was thinking of like doing a lot of shading on it, because a lot of the rendered cover art for Gravity Falls will be a lot of shadow and just like a rim light. I don't think that worked as well for this, partially because of the way that would interact with the face being covered by the tri-mouths. So I guess that's another thing, is just always be experimenting. Just don't be so married to one idea that you let the entire piece look bad because of it. As you can kind of see here, I guess gave up is the right word on it. I was looking at it like, this isn't the vibe I want. It's too messy. And if I did the flats first, maybe I wouldn't be seeing it as much, because when you shade without any other colors or any other rendering going on, it forces you to look at it more. It's one of those philosophies that I think I've talked about before, is every part of the process should look good on its own. Don't do line work that needs to be saved with flats. Don't do flats that need to be saved with shading. Don't do a composition that will be saved by really good line work. Don't do a sketch that will only be visible and readable once it's lit. There are points in the process where, it looks like nothing, and you have to trust the process on. But don't choose to say, oh, I'm going to just, do a fast sketch and to get to the next step well. Because even if you can save it, like, there are people who are, in fact, that good. And, the whole, you have your strengths and skills, but you're not going to be enjoying it as much as if you were lining or coloring, whatever the next step is, something that was just good to begin with. And also, if you're like working in a studio or with a team, that's a good way to just make everyone else cranky. If you're like, oh, I don't got to worry too much about my line work, David's gonna save it with a really good coloring job because David's really good. great for David and all, but like I'm sure David wants to color something that looks good too. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm sure I've said it before, and I'm sure I will say it again because I think it's really worth remembering. I also went ahead and threw a few little gradients on here. It's not necessarily a super Gravity Falls thing, but I wasn't going to do a super good background, but I wanted to give it a little bit of depth, so threw a gradient back there. Maybe I'll throw a gradient on the character itself later, because that's a classic little animation trick to not do crazy shading, but add a little bit of that depth and life to it. I've also seen people recommend adding a bloom to your shading layer to give it a pseudo softness without actually blending it. So I may try those at some point. Made sure to give the teeth some coloring just to keep drawing you to that face, obviously. Some nice, bright, colorful edge lighting, because, again, just trying to make the character readable. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Comment other Lethal Company characters you want to see, or other game monsters in general that you want to see style matched up. Be safe, have a happy New Year's and all that, and bye-bye.